today we have a very special guest with us, Michael Steuer, who is the CTO and president of Casper Labs, has joined us today, and he's going to talk about, the different things about the project. We're going to ask him some questions. We've had a lot of interest from our community, so excited to have you with us. How are you doing, Michael?
I'm great, and thank you for having me, Jake. I'll jump in with one clarification. I'm not the CTO or president of Casper Labs, but of
Okay,
the Casper
sorry.
Association.
Excuse me.
All good, and we can dig into what the difference is or was, and what happened with Casper Labs. But I'll let you drive the conversation. But that's
So maybe that's a good place to start. There may be some confusion there on my part, and I'm sure that other people have it as well. So, when did the separation happen, and what do the two entities do now?
sure. So yeah, that confusion is completely natural because it has been confusing and it had been confusing for a number of years. So Casper Labs was the for-profit company that in essence started the project back in 2018. And I was a co-founder of the company at the time. Um, and they developed the protocol, the Casper protocol, all the way through 2020, 2021, when it was ready for mainnet. At that point, in essence, the IP was handed off to the Casper Association, which is a Swiss nonprofit association, which is really like comparable to the different sort of associations and foundations that you're probably familiar with for other blockchain projects, right? Like the Ethereum Foundation, etc. It's a nonprofit. It's not looking to like build a business. It has a mandate to grow and develop and grow the protocol, the network, and the ecosystem, right? So that's its function. Casper Labs continued to exist within our ecosystem. Played a number of roles as a for-profit commercial company. It was trying to develop its own business, right? And very focused on enterprise use cases. So to try and build platforms and software for enterprises that ultimately would make use of the Casper blockchain. At the same time, because of the history that I just explained, where they were responsible for the original development of the protocol, there were still a lot of engineering resources that were employed by Casper Labs. And while the Casper Association was responsible for the continual development of the protocol, those engineers weren't necessarily moved over at the time. In essence, the association entered into a relationship with Casper Labs on an outsourcing basis, where they basically hired these engineers or paid for these engineers to continue development. Then fast forward a number of years, which is this year, recently, Casper Labs started developing a new enterprise software product called Prove AI, which is an AI governance platform that uses blockchain as a or storage layer. Yeah, exactly. Source of truth for immutable records. They started developing that in the beginning of the year. They publicly announced it in May of this year, I believe. I continued to develop it on the Casper blockchain. And then around August or so, they were approached by Hedera, who made them a very attractive commercial offer to launch the Prove AI product on the Hedera blockchain. And as a for-profit company with equity holders and shareholders and other stakeholders,
Yeah.
they had to do what was in their best interest, exactly. And as a result, they decided to basically move the Prove AI product from Casper to Hedera. That process or that negotiation took a couple months. We announced the outcome of that, I want to say in October. Obviously, a lot of disappointed reactions to it at the time, which is natural, because I think a lot of people were attaching a lot of opium to to Prove AI.
Yeah.
But these things are in the past. Prove AI has moved on to Hedera, and the Casper network has been able to essentially refocus. We brought over all of the engineering resources from Casper Labs. They're all under the Casper Association now. We are nearing the end of the road on launching Casper 2.0, which is a major network and protocol upgrade. We can talk more about that later. And we've really seen a complete reversal in momentum and sentiment for Casper. We see projects announcing that they're building and launching on Casper on a near daily basis. We see almost exclusively positive sentiment out there. There's been obviously some positive market response to all of that, and we're in a very good place. I'm very excited about the future.
That's awesome. Yeah. So very good background. I think a lot of people may have missed some of those things. I know that I did. I've been focused in other areas over the past few years. Casper has always been on my radar as what I thought was a good investment. And maybe I'll kind of allude to or give color or context around why that is for me. And then maybe you can kind of fill gaps there on specific applications that you guys are working on because of these things that are native to the network there. So Casper has the ability for both public and private ecosystems within that infrastructure, right? So
Correct.
you're able to build out what I think will be very interesting use cases for business applications and enterprise applications on the network. Um, a lot of people that are running a business or doing business may not want all of the records or transactions or different things to be public.
Mhm.
Want to be interoperable with something that could settle between siloed ecosystems, right? So, I have my transactions in my private ecosystem and then you do too, but we might want to do business together in certain circumstances. And you might want smart contracts built out for that. So you probably have some type of escrow mechanism or swap or ability to transact with circumstances around those and trigger events built in.
Mhm.
Um, so maybe, I'm not sure what language Casper is written in or how robust the smart contracts are there. Maybe we can start there and then we can talk about some of the different business applications that you're seeing built out on the network.
Sure. So, I mean, there's a lot there. So I'll try and touch on in, as much as possible. So I'll start with your last question first. So the execution engine in Casper is WASM based, so WebAssembly, which means that theoretically or also practically, you can write smart contracts in any language that can compile to WebAssembly, right? Um, which is important because the blockchain industry, while obviously EVM is rightfully a leader in the space, and then there's a lot of activity on EVM chains. Solidity is a custom language that people learn from scratch. There's a very limited sort of developer pool available. If you are a company that doesn't come from the Web3 space, you probably don't have a lot of Solidity developers sitting around, but you may have Rust developers, right? Like if you go on Stack Overflow, a very popular developer knowledge website, year after year, Rust comes out as the most popular programming language, and it so happens that that is one of the primary ones that we support for compilation to WASM. Um, so that's one to answer that question. Then with regards to features, yeah, you mentioned a few other ones that I would highlight that are attractive for businesses and developers alike, whether they're in the enterprise space or other industries. We have the native capability to upgrade contracts, right? So I don't know if you've ever worked in an engineering project. I myself have been in mobile and gaming prior to blockchain. If you play games on your phone or elsewhere, you know that they essentially they update on an almost daily basis, right? Like you launch a game and then you see the data and then you adjust and iterate. For some reason in the blockchain space, while obviously immutability of records is important, it's a bit of a fool's errand to think that the first version of your smart contract is going to be the final version of your smart contract, right? So a lot of ecosystems have been sort of faced with this problem and have come up with sort of wonky solutions with proxy patterns where you actually don't interact with the smart contract directly, but you put something in between that basically passes messages back and forth, so you can change the target of the smart contract. All of it is wonky and not necessarily as secure. Casper from the get-go had a built-in ability to allow developers to safely and securely update their contracts and make sure that this is safe and secure for end users as well. And similarly, other things that we're trying to tackle, like rights management, right? So in a lot of contracts on other platforms, you have to build your own custom sort of user rights and access management. These are things that are, again, for businesses, very important. You don't want your janitor to have the same rights as your CFO, probably. Um, so those are things that are natively built in to the Casper protocol and the Casper execution engine, which allow businesses to actually build real applications that meet their real world needs, right? Not just sort of the very specific and very crypto-centric approach to things that we've seen in other platforms.
Yeah, governance is key.
Yeah.
Finding that more and more. There's definitely a lot of nuances in how people interact with smart contracts and who should be able to sign for what. Um, or authenticate, or how many people should have to sign for a certain value for connection. So we have,
Exactly. A multi-signature transaction is something that is natively built into the protocol versus having multi-sig smart contracts that you then have to trust that they actually do what they say they do, right? So anytime that you can have like this business-centric logic built into the protocol itself, and it's public, open source, audited, and visible to anybody, as a business, you choose to rely on that much sooner than some wonky sort of second layer solution on top.
yeah. So on that topic, I guess, who have you seen start to adopt Casper? Are there certain applications or smart contracts for real world applications that are already being developed there? Have you seen that in real world use at this point? Is it theoretical? How far along are things?
So I think as I mentioned with this whole transition with Casper Labs, the ecosystem is going through a bit of a transition, right? So Casper Labs, because of the sort of outsized sort of importance that they had in the ecosystem due to their position and holding essentially the core engineering resources, they sort of got to dictate a little bit the focus of the projects, which is sort of natural based on that. The result has been that. In essence, it was enterprise only. The focus was, which left a lot of other opportunities sort of on the table. And that is an area that we've really reset on. The blockchain industry is larger than enterprise only. While enterprise is obviously an important vertical, these enterprises are like ginormous ships on an ocean, right? Like to get them to adjust their course is
Yep.
a humongous effort, and it's not something that happens overnight. So these cycles are very long. At the same time, there's a lot of activity in the blockchain space that we provide very attractive solutions for, whether it's in DeFi or in gaming or in deepin and real world assets, etc. And over the last few months, we've seen projects spring up on the Casper network in all those categories. So there's a deepin project launching called COWL Network, COWL. There is a real world asset project launching called RWI. There's a bunch of DeFi activity. We're just seeing projects springing up left and right now that we're able to basically talk about things more than just enterprise and highlight how our technology is really applicable to all these use cases.
That's great. And I'd assume for the foundation, you guys work with these people that are looking to develop on chain and maybe incentivize them through grants, or at least that's the mechanism that I'm familiar with, like Ava Labs and a few others that they use. But basically supporting the development and, actual adoption for use cases on chain. Is that, and I guess if people have um they want to do that, how do they contact you if that's something that they're look at?
Sure. So a couple things there. So the short answer is yes, we are supporting these projects technically, marketing wise, sometimes with funding and incentives. We've had grant programs in the past, multiple, as you point out, most projects and foundations have. We're taking a good look at that. We don't have an official grant program open at the moment, mostly because in our experience and also what we see from other projects is that it's very hard to align incentives in a grant program. Meaning sort of the game theory behind the grant program in essence is like you come in, right? You get a number of milestones defined with monetary rewards attached to them.
Mhm.
And game theory would dictate that you do as little effort as possible to meet the definition of the milestone, right? And then once you hit the last milestone, you move on, right? So what we see in other ecosystems, and we've seen in our own as well, is that this just is an open invitation to, let's call them grant farmers. And it doesn't necessarily lead to longevity and sustainability. So we're looking at how we can augment that a little bit so that we align incentives better. And in the meantime, we're basically assessing these opportunities on a sort of case by case basis. And make sure that the teams that we attract, that they're really committed to building a business and not just sort of grant farming and meeting the minimum sort of requirements of a milestone.
Yeah. No, I,
As to how to reach us, there's still a contact form on the Casper.network website for grant applications, and I'm also very accessible, whether it's on Telegram or on Twitter or X, as I should say. So if somebody has an interesting project, I am confident they will find me.
no, that's awesome. Yeah. And I'm sure that there will be people that watch this that have some interest in working with you guys. Like you said, there's a lot more people that are developing in Rust versus Python and Solidity.
Yeah.
So no, that's fantastic. So on the DeepIn side, so I haven't actually publicly talked about DeepIn at all. There's been a few projects that we've looked at, conversations that we've had around that, but basically it's like hot storage of data, but in a secure fashion, right? So Filecoin and IPFS is great for long-term file storage.
Well,
But
storage is one example, but it's really about sort of public infrastructure, right? So whether it's a file storage or think about communication, right? Like where we all connect with cell phones to a network that's controlled by a large enterprise, and in some cases, depending on the country where you're at, by the government. Same thing with ISPs, same thing with the public Wi-Fi. Like there's typically a centralized party behind that you trust to basically send your data over and monetize possibly your data. Um, and Deepin tries to essentially decentralize that so that we as end users are back in control. Where obviously within sort of the blockchain world, we all believe it should be.
yeah, so you don't have a central point of failure or somebody that is in complete control of it. You have a decentralized network of validators. They're all authenticating the same
Yeah.
data, and it's not and I guess they could still monetize the data for that. Maybe they would have to pay back to the pool, or there'd be some other
Yeah, well, listen, like I think this, the common belief, and you see this more and more, is that like if somebody monetizes my data, then I should A, opt into that, and B, I should be compensated for it, right? So that's something that Deepin enables.
Okay. And you guys have that it's it's a protocol that's built on top of the network that's in
It's a protocol that's built on top, yeah. So the CAL network, as they call themselves, is focused mainly, I believe, on sort of data access, so decentralized data access. So if you connect through, like you may be paying like an Express VPN or NordVPN or something for your VPN service. Instead, you can use a decentralized VPN service that's not controlled by a centralized
that's
network.
cool. I think people that watch this stuff would probably be interested in that. Do you have contact information for them, or is that listed on
I believe it's COWL.network,
uh,
if I'm not mistaken. But
is
I can send you a link later and you can put it in the description or something.
yeah, that would be great. And so,
Yep.
we'll have that in the link down below for
Okay.
you guys. Um, is there anywhere that you could go look and see all the projects that are building on Casper? Is there like a database of different?
But this Casper ecosystem.io, I have to admit that it's not been properly maintained. So while you can find some of it there, it's not all inclusive. So that's one of the many things that are on our collective plates of taking care of now that we're sort of through this transition phase.
I may have somebody that would have an interest in maintaining that for you. Um, he's done that with other networks, and I can make an introduction to Lloyd and his team. Um, so I kind of take the conversation to end wherever you want to. I guess let's look forward into the future. What are you most hopeful about when it comes to Casper, the network, and people building on it? Like, what do the next 5 or 10 years look like for you if Casper is successful?
Wow, 5 or 10 years in this space. That's you might as well ask me 5 or 10 centuries. But
If you want to reel it in for the next couple years.
so I focused on the next year in particular. So we are, as I mentioned at the beginning, wrapping up the development and rollout of Casper 2.0, which is the first major network upgrade that we've gone through. We've gone through about 20 or so minor upgrades over the existence of the network, but this is the first time that it's really a massive sort of breaking change, right? Like a breaking change on the protocol where a lot of things will change. Um, and we're excited about getting that live. And there's tons of like performance improvements in there. There's a new virtual machine that makes development on Casper a lot easier. It makes it so that developers basically takes it from like low level development to, I would say, like middle level development. So essentially you have to care about less sort of minor details. Um, there's a new consensus protocol that's rolling out that simplifies the consensus communication between nodes, which is going to do hopefully wonders for performance. And there's a lot of new features that are being rolled into this release that will enable developers to do a whole lot more. And similarly to what I already described, we're looking to bring as much real world business sort of needs onto sort of the native layer so that you can essentially trust the native protocol to help you build out these real world applications versus having to reinvent the wheel every time and again.
What's the current TPS for the network, and what should it scale to on the other side of the rollout?
The TPS is probably somewhat comparable or just under what Ethereum is at the moment, which is not fantastic. Um, but at the same time, I think the entire blockchain world, on average, if you go on ChainSpect, that app, which tracks these things, runs below an average TPS of Ethereum. So it's not a today problem. Um, but the expected TPS when we activate all these changes on mainnet post 2.0 should go up significantly. But I can't put out any numbers because until we sort of until we have real world data on a network that's fully decentralized with validators around the world and real applications on it, it's hard to simulate these things in a lab, right? Like we can spin up networks and even try to decentralize it, but they would all still run in like AWS's infrastructure or something, and they wouldn't have like it's very hard to simulate real world environments. So we'll have better data on that as we go along.
Very good. Okay. Well, thank you for coming on.
I would add one thing to that essentially compared us to Ethereum from a TPS perspective. The one thing that's different from Ethereum is finality, right? So when you do a transaction on Ethereum, you generally have to wait about like 15 minutes or so before that transaction is considered final by exchanges or any tool that you use because they're waiting for, I think, like 64 blocks to pass or something like that before they're really sort of safe and secure in their assessment that that transaction is not going to be reverted, etc. Casper has instant finality. So if you, as soon as your transaction is in a block, it's irreversible, meaning while the block time may be like 16 seconds, like it doesn't take longer than 16 seconds for a transaction to be final, which is a huge win from, again, an application building perspective, right? Because the user experience in a lot of these applications is one where you have to wait and sit around for minutes or 10, 15 minutes before you can do the next step because this transaction is not considered final. So there's a bunch of levers. It's not just TPS.
What is the consensus protocol that you guys use or the mechanism?
So Casper is actually named after its consensus protocol. So it's the Casper Consensus Protocol, in which Casper CBC, correct by construction, was originally developed in 2015-ish by the Ethereum Foundation, actually, under their research arm. And then Casper picked it up or continued to develop it and basically took it from a theoretical level, which is where it was at. Um, and developed it further and proved its liveness, which is again, for a consensus protocol, it has to be provably live, meaning it can withstand anything and continue to run, right? So that's something that we did. The first iteration of that we called the highway protocol, which is, I guess, a subset of Casper. The next consensus protocol that is going live with 2.0 is called Zug, ZUG, named after the Swiss city of Zug, where Casper Association is headquartered. But that takes basically the work that we've done in highway and simplified some of it in order to make it more performant.
Okay, very cool. Excited to see, where it goes and who picks it up and what applications are developed on the network. Like I said, I've been a fan for a long time. I thought that, because of a lot of the business logic that's built in, uh, makes sense that people would adopt it in those applications. And now that you're not just exclusive to enterprise, I think that there's going to be a lot more people that may be reaching out to you in the near future to hope.
Yeah, no, that's been going on not just in the future, but in the present and the past over the last months as well. As I mentioned, we're just seeing a tremendous uptick in interest and projects announcing on the network, and it's done great from a um, just the public perception of the project has been really good over the last few months.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, yeah, again, if you'll just let people know how they could reach out to you if they are interested, you said via some social media platforms would be the best way to.
Yeah, I'm exactly. So I'm on Telegram. I mean, you can join the official Casper channel, which I think is well. Let me double check that for you.
Put it down below. Got it. You'll send it to us. Put it in the link.
It's the Telegram channel Casper Blockchain, or you can find me just Michael Steuer, first name, last name. On X, I'm MS Steuer, so letter M, letter S, and then my last name. Come talk to me.
Yeah, awesome. Again, thank you for being on and explaining Casper and where you guys are at with the things that are going on over there, and wish you the best in the future.
Thank you very much, Jake. Really enjoyed talking to you.